Hi, everyone. We're so happy that you're here. We are going to get started in just a couple of minutes. We are going to give everyone a chance to get logged in before we begin. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Region 10 and Partners Resource Network. My name is Sarah Untersea. I am the School, Family, and Community Engagement Consultant here at Region 10. The topic for today's webinar is relationships, resolution, and resources. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. If you need any technical assistance during today's webinar, we do have Ashton Rowe with us today from Region 10 that can provide that support. She's going to be our little Region 10 cube that you might see on your screen. You can send her a chat message if you need any help. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be made available on the Region 10 website. It does usually take about a week or so before that's posted. But once we get started with today's webinar, we'll drop that link into the chat so that you're able to access that once it becomes available. If you have questions about special education, contact us at SpedTex, your source for special education information. We are happy to help, and our contact information is on the screen. We do have Partners Resource Network with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie McLaughlin to share just a little bit about Partners Resource Network and what they do.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Stephanie McLaughlin. I am the Training and Evaluation Specialist for Partners Resource Network. Partners Resource Network is the nonprofit agency that operates the Texas statewide network of parent training and information centers. We are funded through the Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, and throughout Texas, we have 4 different projects known as PACT, PATH, PIN, and TEAM. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities or special health care needs. And we do this through a network of highly skilled, regionally located coordinators who are knowledgeable in local policies, services, and resources, as well as state and national guidelines. We provide training, information, and one-on-one assistance at no cost to Texas families and youth. We serve parents of children and youth with disabilities from birth to age 26, as well as youth self-advocates from 14 to 26. All of our services are provided in English and Spanish, and you can check out more about us at our website at prntexas.org. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, for today's presentation, we are so excited to welcome Manny Gwendolay from the Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Special Education, better known as CADRE. And so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Manny. Oh, you're on mute, Manny.
There we are. I'm so sorry. My name is Manny Gwendolay. I am the local level capacity specialist for CADRE, which is the Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Special Education. I would like to take a moment to introduce my director, that's Dr. Melanie Reese. She's here today with us. And with that, I would like to go ahead and get into it. I've got a lot of things to talk about today, and I want to make sure our time is well spent. Today, we're going to talk a little about me. We're going to define some defined relationships. We will look at normalizing and reframing conflict. We will look at focusing on interest to preserve relationships. And we will then look at some CADRE resources that can be found on our website. Here's a little about me. I'm Manny Gwendolay. I'm a native Louisianian, and I'm the parent of an adult child on the spectrum. I'm a I'm a former middle and high school teacher, and I also was a school and community librarian, and I've been a member of CADRE since 2022. CADRE is the National Center for Dispute Resolution in Special Education. We are a technical assistance center under the U.S. Department of Ed's OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs, and we serve all 50 states and our territories. Our mission is that we are supporting the prevention and resolution of disputes through partnership and collaboration. We help share the DR options that are under IDEA. If parents and school districts disagree over special education services provided under the options to resolve or under the IDEA, we provide options to resolve the dispute through the state, including mediation, state complaints, due process complaints. We at CADRE, however, are charged to share a much wider array of dispute resolution options appropriate to each specific case. Here's our continuum of DR processes, and I won't spend a lot of time getting into the meat of it, but here it shows that there's a full spectrum of different options and assistance and intervention options presenting multiple ways to bring the best type of resolution needed to any dispute. On the right side of the process are the litigation proceedings, and the spectrum kind of widens into interest-based focus that has a lot of informal and flexible room to make sure that dispute resolution options are open, that are more affordable, that they're the least restrictive, and they're also the most accessible to all of us. Today, I really want to talk about some relationship building, and I've got this wonderful quote here from Georgetown University's National Center of Cultural Competence. I'm going to read it, and then I want to ask the chat what words really stick out. So it's building and maintain a relationship and working on relationships is building and maintaining relationships is a shared responsibility of families and professionals that requires mutual respect for the roles and strengths each has to offer. And again, I would like to ask the chat, what are the words in here that really stick out to you? Maintaining and strengths, I see that. And the shared part, I also see a lot of mutual respect. And I actually think that that's the thing that really nails it for me, is that everyone involved in a child's education deserves respect. They're doing the work on all sides. And I want to show that that mutual respect is kind of the cornerstone that builds all sorts of trust and strengthening bonds of a relationship. On our next slide, we see that there's a foundation built in that picture of building blocks, and that is trust and respect. Those start to put together things that can last and are strong. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about relationship building and how sometimes trust must be rebuilt. my first year in the classroom, I really learned this truth right here, that while, of course, as a former, as a teacher, I went into teaching because I really enjoyed high school. But what I soon learned was that high school and middle school weren't everyone's favorite cups of tea. Instead, some people and some parents that I would interact with, I had to rebuild their trust because of how they had their own high school experience. And that was also being instilled in their child. And I wanted to make sure that I could show that it wasn't the same way as it was when we were in school. There are barriers and roadblocks, and they need not be permanent. They are mutable and can be taken away or even pushed past because, well, things change. Focusing on finding commonalities and mutual beneficial goals, shared values are important in this relationship building. We must allow people and organizations to grow and change. We have to adopt a problem-solving focus, addressing interest, and find the champions to help build relationships with others. This one here really stuck with me as I was making this list and going through it and preparing for it. On the champions piece, when my own daughter was entering the school system, it was a child psychologist that had worked with my daughter that really sent it home. I enjoyed his demeanor, his cool sensibility, and I built he instilled a lot of trust in how he would talk to me about my daughter's proceedings in school. And that was the lifesaver. I instantly knew that I had someone that I could talk to and that would get me and hear me. And once I had that champion on the opposite side, I knew that I could hit, or I could go across, or I could go as far as I could with grace and coolness in my spirit while I dealt with things that were going on at my daughter's school. And then finally, in relationship buildings, we want to commit to the long haul, and we want to express that to the other people involved in the situation and in that relationship. I said this before, and I'll say it again, that communication, it has a shared, and that was the word that one of the words that was shared or that was brought forth in the chat. There's a shared meaning when you have communication, and that shared meaning can sometimes be off. An example of that would be definitions such as the mutual respect. If we don't have the same definition of mutual respect, how can we actually show that respect to one another and it actually stick and be genuine and be expressed from one to another? If your goal is to create a shared meaning, the responsibility of keeping those terms in a communicated manner, that's a shared duty between both sides of an issue. My meaning and your meaning have to have some sort of shared value for a relationship to work, because if that shared meaning is lost, conflict surely becomes inevitable. So I would like to ask you, when you encounter conflict, what are some things that come to your mind? How do you feel? What did it look like? And what was the impact? So when you encounter conflict, what are some of the common things that happen to you instantly? Please place some of these ideas in the chat. Discomfort and frustration, yes. Physical signs like turning red or your blood pressure rising, being confused, being angry, being upset. Oh, and flood of emotions, correct, Adrienne. And anxiousness and increased heart rate. Well, those are all real factors when it comes to conflict. But the truth of the matter is that, and this is something that we embrace at CADRE, is that conflict is normal, it's natural, and it's to be expected. We have to brace ourselves for it. And that's part of what I came to talk about today. When we're surprised, we often react by fight, flight, or freeze. And as parents, as we step into the murky waters of the education process, especially the special education process, we must learn to do more than react. We have to train ourselves to understand conflict and how to deal with it so that we don't activate these lizard sides of our brains and do one of these three defaults of fight, flight, or freeze. What we gain by normalizing conflict is that it allows us to anticipate and normalize conflict by addressing it before it arises and announcing that once it is recognized, hey, sometimes we disagree and that's okay, but we can work through it. A shift can happen. When we accept the near inevitability of conflict, we're better able to engage it constructively and actually look at the problem. At the apex of every conflict is the ultimate crisis, that moment when change must happen. And again, the biggest thing that I can offer here is that once it's recognized, we can actually look at it. So let's recognize this crisis element by looking at it in a different light. Crisis in Chinese is YG, and it means danger and opportunity combined. So before I begin, let's talk about some things that can come out of conflict that can be opportunities. Okay, so while there is danger, there also is opportunity. So take a moment and write in the chat what might be an opportunity that comes from conflict. Change and growth, collaboration, learning new perspectives, better services. I see a lot of the things that I'm actually about to put on this list right here. Growth, having a better understanding of another person's perspective, definitely. And new, fresh ideas. All of these are great. All of these are wonderful answers. Clarification is definitely something that I heard in the chat. And conflict allows you to really see the playing field for what it is because you're challenged to see new things. You can receive healing out of that clarity. Understanding, movement, and someone in the chat put change. Creativity, and the idea of being able to build the relationship with new, fresh ideas, as Catherine pointed it out. Problem solving, growth, and relationship improvement. All of these things can come about from conflict. Although we always shy away from conflict immediately, I have to say it's a lot easier to deal with conflict if your options are more than fight, flight, or freeze. We have to realize that two things can be true. That the blue light, cast on this object here shows a square while the yellow light cast a circle. And when you're in the middle of conflict and at the apex of crisis, it's sometimes very difficult to imagine the opposite side of that spectrum there, to see what another person is seeing, because as we see on the depiction, all of those things are true. The object is shaped like that. In one light, it is a square. In the other, it is a circle. In the dispute resolution field, we look at it and think, well, parents must know, understand, and have access to their dispute resolution rights under the IDEA. but also building relationships and engaging in early and effective conflict engagement practices are worthwhile to avoid that escalation. Because the truth of the matter is as something escalates, emotions start to get filled into all of the gaps, and high emotions increase when an outcome holds critical importance to us. When a conflict escalates, resolution is more difficult because tactics can go from light to heavy. And for an example of such a conflict, let's look at one of the more accessible ones that I think we've all had, and that's having a poor experience at a restaurant. When you start to realize that a dining experience is going south, we can easily see that tactics can go from light to heavy in just our manner of trying to get the attention of a server. We start to raise our hands after we've made eye contact. We might clear our plates and put them off to the side to show that we're desiring service. Your positions may also become more polarized. You might immediately start to say that you're having a bad meal and that nothing can start to change you on that poor service from the bad meal and the poor service. The issues start to expand. All of a sudden, the situation becomes very, very important to you. What is wrong is now the most important thing about it. You're being snubbed by your server. Your food was cold. The issue expands to everything. Your drinks were not filled, and then all of a sudden, specific issues become general issues. Then you start looking around and you see everything that is wrong. You see cups that are unfilled. You see a table that hasn't been properly bussed. You see staff loitering in the background, not busy. And all of a sudden you have all of these engaged ideas, and then your motivations change. It went from you having a perfectly nice meal, and then it slowly becomes, I want to win. I want my point made so that I can go about my business. And then finally, once it comes to a boiling point, the pressure turns it into, I need to teach a lesson. And all of a sudden your phone's out and you're giving a bad Yelp review, or you're talking trash on social media about your dining experience. Escalation definitely shows up when emotions become involved. One of the other things that can easily frame a conflict into a farther worse light is adversarial framing. Adversarial framing is the tendency to view our conflict counterparts as adversaries. No longer is it you dealing with the problem of you're having poor service. No, in that same regard that I was using earlier, it would be something like, oh no, this server is out to get me. It must be personal. And what this does is it leads to us emphasizing points of disagreement and overlooking areas of mutual interest. Chances are that person wanted to show up to work today. Chances are that person really enjoys working with people and making their day by serving them food. But things can go wrong, and then things can escalate, especially when emotions are involved. I love this depiction over here about adversarial framing and seeing someone else as the enemy, pulling against them, only to be able to look at one another and realize that working together is actually the way to solve a problem. When we disagree, we often see the other person as the problem, but one of the best things that I can recommend is to separate the person from the problem and move the problem to the opposite side of the table. When you do this, when you start to reframe the other person in a conflict as not the adversary, but instead as someone that belongs in that relationship, then you both can look at the problem and see how to fix it. The problem is to put, or the goal is to put the problem on the opposite side of the table and to work together to resolve it. So how can the predictability of how we assign motives help us? If we assign a motive to someone's poor character, how will we communicate with them? How will our communication work if we continue to frame other people in this manner? So this is a big one for us. It's another option and another thing to think about when you're looking at conflict is to separate positions from interest. You have this gigantic iceberg here, and the problem that we normally see, the positions, what people want, is above the surface. That's the demands, their personal solutions, and their expectations. But really, conflict is a little more complex than that and thankfully that's the case, because otherwise it's just a might makes right kind of situation of me demanding, me offering solutions, and me offering expectations. But in truth, there are reasons why we get into our situation, our conflicts, and it's our interest more so than our demands and our solutions and our expectations. Instead, these interests lie below the surface. And the only way that you actually can look at this is if you can ask questions about the situation to determine what these below the surface interests in a conflict really are. The needs, the beliefs, the values, and the fears. A great example to show here is two people in a room, and one of them wants to open the window, and the other wants the door shut, or the window shut. The position is, I want the window open, or I want the window shut. That's the demand, it's the solution, and it's the expectation. But lying below are the reasons for the conflict and a possible solution. Is one of the people in this situation cold? Is one of the people too warm? Is the idea that I like to be colder than I like to be warmer an issue? Because if we actually look at all of these situations or all of the reasons for why a window should be open, we don't actually ask why someone wants it open. Maybe it's just because they're having a hard time being comfortable in the room. Maybe they could sit on another side of the room and it would be cooler. Maybe the person who is cold could sit by a closed window that would actually keep their that wants it cooler, could sit by a closed window and actually enjoy that coolness. There are so many other ways of looking at the situation besides the cut and dry of the demands, the solutions, and the expectations. What we need to do as parents going into the process of education is we need to look at positions for what they are and then be able to uncover the interest. Interest have to do with things like, I expect something, I want something, you should do something, or this is what must happen. But really, interest are the motivations. They're the things that are driving us to the conflict, really. The I need, the I value something, I fear, and I hope. So I'm going to bring this down into an all familiar situation about curfew and teenagers. So the dad's positions and interest, what's going on is a son has asked to go to a concert at night. And the dad's position on the situation is, okay, well, you can go to the show, but I want you to be here at home by 10 p.m. So I want to ask the chat, what do you think could be some of the possible interest for why the dad wants this position? Think of the needs, the values, the fears, and the hopes. Safety. Yes, Beth. Juanita agreed, the safety for the son. And I'll even poke and preview. That's my first answer. The dad wants to make sure his son is safe. Or, as Christina puts, holding an expectation and a standard. He has experience trying to get the kid up in the morning with little sleep. Mandy, what a great option. There's something that you need to do with me on Saturday morning. Maybe the son has something to do, wants the child to follow the rules and be disciplined. All of these are great answers. And I mean, there are probably a myriad of other answers that could come out of this, but I'll show what I have on my list. So as y'all all said, safety, worrying about bad choices, wants to be the responsible parent, holding the expectation and standard, as Christina had said, values boundaries. Edwin, you said that the dad might want the child to follow the rules. And lastly, the hope and fear part, that I don't want my son to turn out like his brother or like my brother, rather. On the opposite side, we can look at the son's position. He wants to be home by 2 a.m. because he knows the concert's going to last long. But what are some of those interests that he might have? Wants to feel trustworthy. A need for control of himself or to be independent. Yes. Wants independence. Well, I'll go ahead and share my list here. Wants to have fun. Look at that. Or to socialize with peers and not be controlled. Freedom and independence. Everyone else has their curfews extended, so the social interaction and peer approval there. The time away from home. And as I had kind of tipped my hand earlier, the concert doesn't end until late, but the son and the parent can parlay once they look at those different interests and figure out exactly why, or maybe find a common ground between their two positions so that the conflict doesn't end in a manner where someone completely loses out. Fun can still be had, independence can still be garnered, peer approval and social interaction can be there, time away from home can be there, but safety and being assured. What if the son was to call and ensure that he was okay during the set break? What if he called before he was on his way home so that the father could know that everything was going well? There are many different ways to present this argument so that it's not so cut and dry. Be home by 10, be home by 2 a.m. There's a lot of wiggle room in there. Finding the interest is really about asking specific questions. And if we, bringing back to the beginning of conflict, if we look at fight or flight, if we look at, all right, if we fight, freeze, or flight at every conflict, we don't actually we don't see the interest because we're too busy reacting. But if we can take the time and look at the interest or ask a few questions, we get these really malleable ideas about how things are affecting me or the other person. What do you think will happen if we do this, which is creativity? Can you explain how this is important to you, which talks about values? How does this solve the issue? That's about creativity as well. And what is blocking you from, and this is growth and change. And then finally, what do you need to move forward, which is safety and care? If we can ask these questions, we can steal away from the time that we spend reacting, and then we can make an adequate choice for conquering the conflict that we encounter. The next thing that I would like to talk to you about today is our resources that we have on our website. As we are the Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution, one of our charges is that we have information that is easily accessible to educators and to families. You can find us at cadreworks.org. This is a nice snapshot of our website, and you can see that there is there's different sections: the About Us, the Continuum, there's improving your system, but mostly you're going to find a lot of resources and information for families as you start your journey into the education process. One of the first things that we have is the Skill Builders online learning series. This is a wonderful series of courses that help parents navigate the IEP and beyond setting. It's a wonderful online learning session that you can take as you would like and as you can. It's also available in Spanish. One of the other resources that you will find on our website is The Tale of Two Conversations. This is one of our wonderful resources that basically demonstrates the absence and presence of mutual respect and how relationships can be harmed or built upon by just displaying mutual respect to one another. There's a clear indication of the benefits and the pitfalls in working with professionals and building those relationships. We also have on our For Families page a large section of options and information. One of the things that I would like to share with you is our state agency and parent center information. If you were to click on to the state of Texas, you would see the PRN. But I bring this and I call this to your attention because while you might have other family members within the country or within the territories, you might be able to help them point their direction to finding the assistance centers and PTIs that they're looking for in their own states. It's a pull down menu, and every time you click on a different state, it brings up the people that, or the groups and organizations that would be beneficial in that state to help you. One of the things that we have on our website also, and this is definitely a great series of pamphlets, are booklets on IDEA dispute resolution options. And we have 5 of these. They're available in English and then in 12 other languages. And if you glean anything else from this presentation, it's that these booklets are available to you. They're written in plain English, and they break down every notion of dispute resolution for you so that you can understand and navigate the dispute resolution processes. Each one of them has a what is mediation or a what is dispute or due process complaints, what is written state complaints or facilitation. They also give the benefits of each one of these processes. They answer frequently asked questions, and they also help you prepare for each step of these dispute resolution options. We also have a video series on these booklets, and they're written in, or they're available in English and Spanish with Korean and Arabic on its way very soon. The wonderful thing about these books is that they're written in plain English, and they explain in detail exactly what you need to know about every one of these steps. The next thing that I would like to point out is that available in 13 languages, we have our Steps to Success Communicating with Your Child's School brochure. This is a 4-page document offering coaching tips to ensure you can prepare to communicate with your child's school. It is a toolbox of different ways to talk about difficult topics of conversation in a school environment. It is one that I send out in our publications regularly, and I definitely would like for you to take a look at it. We also have a CADRE newsletter, and that is a free, brief, almost monthly electronic update that shares new features and resources that can be found on the CADRE website. We also have a ton of webinars that are available for you to look at, and our newsletter keeps our listeners and our subscribers, it keeps them aware of all of the webinars we keep on our website. And down at the bottom here, it shows that in order to subscribe to the newsletter, all you have to do is go onto our website, and you can see you can go onto the website and you can see our newsletter subscription. All you have to do is click on it, put your email address in there, and then you'll start receiving those updates. And that's on cadreworks.org. Next, I have a links page for you, and this is this is just a list of some of the sites or some of the pages that we have on our website, and everything that we've talked about today. I will share with the PRN, the folks here, that I will share this spreadsheet so that you can access it and look at it as you would like. And then finally, as we get to the end, I have a feedback please page. It seems like I'm a little below, or I'm a little ahead of everything, but this is our website this is our survey for today's presentation. We value your feedback, and we really appreciate anything that you were able to contribute to that. There's a QR code for it. And I would like now to open up any questions that anyone might have for me about CADRE or about dispute resolution.
Thank you so much, Manny. We appreciate your time, and we'll give everyone just a few minutes if there are any questions. I see one question about whether or not this will be shared or posted. We will post the recording of today's webinar on the Region 10 website, and that will be put up in about a week or so once everything is made accessible. There is a, go ahead.
Beth, I do see your question. And Melanie, if you would like to address that one, it's, do you come to the ARDs, which I'm not familiar myself with that acronym.
It's the same as an IEP meeting. Texas calls them ARD meetings.
Okay.
We like to be different here.
I see. So you're asking whether CADRE is available to come to IEP meetings? No. So what CADRE is we are a technical assistance center that offers support to state agencies and parent centers and lead agencies by developing materials, doing these kinds of trainings. But we have a staff of 4 for the entire nation. So the ability to work at an individual level, unfortunately, is not within our purview. But hopefully the materials that we have are something that you can use to both build your own skills and to help others.
Thank you, Melanie.
Sure.
Do you offer these trainings for school districts?
I'll go ahead and answer this one too, Manny. So given our capacity, we generally do these trainings mostly for regional parent centers. We have had a long relationship with PRN, and so we have done the work for and did these trainings for this group for quite some time. So you're special here in Texas, but we just don't have the capacity to do this kind of training at the district level. However, that said, we do have a lot of resources that can be used for professional development at district levels. I would turn you to, and Manny talked about this, the Working Together series, which has a facilitator guide as part of the program, where you can build a training out of that for any length of time. You could take one part of the courses and build a training around that, as well as the Tale of Two Conversations. There's also a study guide and training guide that goes with that. So we hopefully have built enough resources that you don't need us in order to get a lot of this information, that you can with the learning communities or with some individual, somebody taking the leadership of facilitating a conversation with our materials can do it as well.
And I know here at Region 10, we definitely try to share those resources with educators whenever I'm doing professional developments on family engagement. I know that I'm always sharing those two links that you just talked about with our educators in this area as well.
And the other side of that question, just to build a little bit more, yes, this material that we're talking about now is information that I will be sharing at the National Case Conference in Pittsburgh, where it's the National Council for School Administrators, so district level school administrators. We believe in this material so much that it's great for parents, it's great for districts, it's great for state folks. We believe in it, that the value of collaborative decision making and good conflict engagement skills are something that everybody can use.
Okay, we are going to go ahead and get wrapped up today. Again, thank you both, Melanie and Manny, for being here today. We really, really appreciate this information, and I know it is so beneficial for our families and educators. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.